when we first brought this artist on, in a lot of ways, we were sort of feeling out like, is the initial growth bump that we're seeing from a sales promotion going to be sustainable? Is it going to be something that can continue to happen? And what was really cool and what we were really able to do was to pull these levers and prove to ourselves that it could be done and that it could be something that continued on. And we're coming up on 2 years in October, I believe. And, the growth just continues to happen, which is really, really cool.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast brought to you by IndiePRO.io.
What's up, Indies? Welcome back to the Creative Juice podcast. This is episode 326. And today we're going to be talking about some of the levers that we pulled in an artist business at our agency, IndieX, to help them grow their revenue 15x, and talk about the levers and the marketing campaigns that we ran to do that, to prove that it was going to work ongoing for us and for him. I'm your host, Jack McCarthy. With me, as always, is Circa. Cirque, I'm excited for this episode.
15x?
15x.
Jack, that's 15x on monthly revenue, but over 30x on the previous annual revenue.
Yeah.
So it's fair to say that the IndieX team went off.
Yeah, we sure did. And this was a really fun case study story, client story, because to be honest, when we onboarded this client, we weren't sure quite what it was going to go like in the long term, which is why I say we're kind of continuing to pull these levers and run these processes as we went along to really prove to ourselves like, okay, this is something that is sustainable and that we can continue to do predictably for this artist. So it's really cool. And I'm excited to share what we were working on, what we've been working on, and kind of what happened in this artist business to grow their revenue the way that we did.
I can't wait to find out what the hell you guys did.
So let's give a little bit of context here then. This artist had about 300,000 followers, fans across social media. So, not a small artist necessarily.
What about monthly listeners on Spotify, dude?
I honestly don't remember what their monthly listeners were at the time.
But that's the only thing that matters.
See, that's the thing. I don't even know what their monthly listeners were when we started. Yeah, I'm not sure what their monthly listeners were when they started. I could probably tell you what they are now. 50K right now.
50,000 monthly listeners. They can't possibly be making any money.
They are making a lot of money in e-commerce revenue, which is very, very cool. So this artist had about 300,000 fans spread across social media, had a lot of records out previously, a long career so far, was doing music full time. It really came to us with the goal of activating the e-commerce arm of their business, which was cool. But like I said, we were kind of experimental in going into an engagement with them, and we dove right into it. And the first thing that showed signs of promise for them in terms of growing this revenue stream was the very first thing we did when we started working with them was, in addition to getting ready to build ad campaigns for an upcoming release that they were having, we ran a sales promotion before that stuff launched. And we pulled in just under $12,000 for that sales promotion that we ran. It was around the holidays. We ran a sales promo to their email list, social media following, and we ran some warm audience ads around an offer, and we pulled in around $12,000. Now, what's interesting about that is the previous year, they had made $8,000 total in e-commerce. So we were immediately like, okay, there's something going on here. There's a use case here. We've got something happening. Now, can we scale it? And that was where we started to pull the rest of these levers that we worked on throughout the last year and a half that we've been working with this artist. And I think these are really, really interesting and hopefully insightful to anybody listening about release cadence and selling and levers that you can pull in your own music business. So, like I said, they had done about $8,000 the previous year before working with us in e-commerce sales. When they onboarded, they were doing about $2,000 a month in e-commerce sales. So they had grown a little bit, but what we really wanted to do was put gasoline on the fire. And so we ran the sales promotion and that looked promising. So we were like, all right, let's do this. Since then, they've released 2 records. So we spent about the first 9 months to a year in this first album cycle with them. And what we were focused on during that period of time was cold traffic advertising at scale to grow their e-commerce revenue. So we were selling this new record, both CDs and vinyl, warm audience advertising as well. So we were getting their existing fans and we were pulling new people into their world with a story and a message around the record. And that worked really well. And then after that first release cycle, we moved into a second release cycle. They released another album. So there's 2 releases within a year, which I think is important to note here. A lot of artists think they can just release a record and then just kind of disappear for a while. This artist was pretty consistent and had a roadmap planned out for what their releases were going to look like, so that if an offer started to dry up or people just weren't, purchasing anymore, we were ready and kind of had something set to go in the back pocket, ready to launch. So that was what was going on in the release cycle side of things, which I think was pretty critical for us to be able to continue to grow the revenue and continue to drive advertising revenue to cold traffic, being able to pivot into a new offer when we started to see the first one go stagnant, not even stagnant, but profitability started to go down.
Yeah, it seems like you guys had all the bases covered, right? Like you were doing multiple contingencies if things didn't go exactly how you wanted them to.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's the next few levers that I actually wanted to talk about, which is cool. So where this all ended up was about just north of $300,000 in e-commerce revenue, a totally new revenue stream for this artist, which was wild given that the year before working with us, they had done around 8,000. So stoked, to say the least. A really, really cool result and a big win. We've been super excited about it, and kind of it's a jumping up and down sort of every week that we have results to talk about with this artist. It's really fun. But here's what's been going on additionally, sort of on top of the regular sales campaigns that we've been running, both to cold and warm audiences. Something that we've been really focused on is both for the fans that are coming into their world and the ones that have been existing and hanging around for a while. We're running regular nurturing campaigns, email marketing campaigns, to keep those fans sort of engaged, let them know what's going on, keeping them updated about content that's dropping, about music, going behind the scenes, talking about stories from the road, tour dates, things like that. And we're doing that on a weekly basis. So we're keeping the fans really, really engaged with what's going on in this artist world. And that's really important for the next lever that I'm going to talk about. So we cover the nurturing angle, right? What this does for us is it kind of primes the pump for regular sales promotion. So we built on top of sort of the sales engines that we've built with advertising, we've built on, profit boosting initiatives through sales promotions in a calendar. So every 6 weeks, we're running a different sales promotion. And what's really cool about these is they've all been based around different vinyl variants for the artist 2 records that we've released, the 2 cycles that we've been going through. So new vinyl variants every 12 weeks, actually, those sales promotions are happening. And then on the off promotions, 6 weeks, vinyl variant sales promotion, 6 weeks go by, soft goods. So t-shirts, hoodies, merch drops. And then another 6 weeks goes by and it's another vinyl variant. And this has worked really well at keeping the fan base activated, continuing to sell to new people that are coming into their world. And it's worked really well, like I said, like kind of like a profit maximizing system.
Yeah, I remember some of the early wins on this account. I've largely been not a part of the day-to-day or the week-to-week updates. Like, I mean, I'm not a part of this account. What I mean is to say is like, I don't get check-ins about it much because I'm over in IndiePRO and you guys are over in IndieX.
Yeah, yeah.
But it seems to, at the same time as it's intensified, you guys have really like, if this were happening around when this person came on, there would be like backflips every morning on meetings and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's just like sort of become the new normal.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what's really cool about what we've done is, like I said, when we first brought this artist on, in a lot of ways, we were sort of feeling out like, is the initial growth bump that we're seeing from a sales promotion going to be sustainable? Is it going to be something that can continue to happen? And what was really cool and what we were really able to do was to pull these levers and prove to ourselves that it could be done and that it could be something that continued on. And we're coming up on 2 years in October, I believe. And, the growth just continues to happen, which is really, really cool. This is also translated into sold out dates for shows. And obviously, has had the sort of overall fan base growth halo happening, which is cool when it's all coming with additional revenue.
Yeah. What has this sort of taught you about how you approach independent music career growth and the opportunities for sales when it comes to an indie artist who's not necessarily the hottest thing on TikTok right now?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think one thing that we did a lot of due diligence on when we were first starting to talk to this artist in particular, and what we do with all artists, but I think we're becoming more and more cognizant of this, especially in the days of TikTok, is we're really looking to see from a qualitative perspective, what kind of engagement is an artist really getting? Because if you can pay attention to an artist post and see what kind of comments fans are leaving, what they're talking about, what the artist inbox looks like, and how they're communicating with fans, that is a really big indicator of monetization possibility in my experience. And this artist was a really good example of that. If you look at their socials, there's a lot going on whenever they put stuff out to their fans. And it's not just, again, it's not based on any sort of viral trend or any flash in the pan sort of stuff that you sometimes see with viral TikTok artists or influencers that may not have the same immediate monetization potential. This is something that had been going on for quite a long time, where there was this sort of qualitative fan base or this qualitative engagement from a fan base building up and building into a snowball. And really, these people were just ready to be sold to or be ready to be made an offer. And because of that excitement, when we advertise to cold audiences that may not know this artist or might just tangentially know who they are, it kind of follows suit that people can sniff it out and be like, oh, this person's the real deal. I dig the music and there's something happening here. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah. How did all of this, what's the trajectory been like for correlative touring success or live show success?
Yeah. So this artist had a really strong base for live shows even before onboarding with us. So touring was already a huge part of their business, which is great. That's where a lot of the revenue came from. It's only opened up more possibilities for him to directly sell tickets. And we've definitely seen that sort of benefit where now he's got a bigger contact list of fans, an email list. But not only is it an email list of fans, it's an email list of customers. And I think that there's a difference there that artists and their teams should know about, is if you've got people who have bought from you online and it's not just an email list of people who signed up for a pre-save or something like that, those people are definitely more likely to buy from you something else online, more likely to buy tickets. And what's cool about it is you can segment them by their area because you've got all of that data because you sent them something. And I think that often goes missed, especially for artists at a larger level. It's oh yeah, we've got emails, and it's an email list with just an email address from a pre-save campaign or something. It's I can't do much with this.
Yeah. And so what would you say to someone listening who might say that sounds really cool, but I am a smaller artist and I don't make pop. I don't make trap or drill music all the hip styles of today that the kids are fiending for. How am I supposed to succeed?
Yeah. So what's interesting about this is, and I'm not going to name the artist, but this artist is not really a super hip, in vogue on May 21st, 2024 genre, more rock leaning. So not exactly a trap artist or bedroom pop or something like that.
And this is not the decade in which more rock leaning musical styles are commercially favored.
No, definitely not. So I would use that to break your belief about your style, for one. And another thing, like I said, this artist doesn't really fall on the spectrum of massive either. To be totally honest, there were some concerns in onboarding initially until we sort of did that qualitative sort of fan base work to see like, all right, how are people talking about this artist? And I remember talking with Jonah, who did the initial onboarding for this artist, and he was like, yeah, dude, like IndieX is the move here. Like, we're going to make this person tons of money. So there was a lot of internal conversations about that early on. But what I would say is like, as you're growing, if you're in a position where you're like, okay, I'm not a huge artist, I would say like first, like I've already mentioned at the top of this episode, this artist was sitting at around like 300,000 fans across socials. So like maybe measure yourself against that, measure the qualitative engagement of your fan base against what we've talked about in this episode, and kind of use that as qualifiers to say like, do any of these levers or playbooks apply to me? That's like point number one. If they don't, and you're maybe still in a growth place where you're not quite at that audience size, or you feel like the engagement isn't quite there, I would say work towards those things. Work towards growing the fan base. Like I said, this artist had a long career of touring under their belt. They had done a lot of touring. That was where a lot of their revenue came from. Also, the ability to create music and get it out there, two full length records within a year and a half. So prolific in that sense that they weren't just putting out music once and then kind of disappearing for a while. I think important to consider. The vinyl variants, important to consider. We've been cycling through those every 12 weeks or so, dropping merch every 6 weeks or 12 weeks. So there's been a lot of that going on. I think that all sort of gives you, no matter where you're starting out, it gives you things that you can work towards. And if you are in that artist, in the same sort of realm as an artist like this, then yeah, you've got these levers that you can start pulling on.
And hit us up.
Yeah. Yeah. And reach out to us. We definitely love to hear from you. I'll leave a link to the IndieX application in the show notes if you are looking for an agency that's specifically focused on e-commerce growth for artists and building that sort of infrastructure and selling muscle. That's really what we're all about and what we do. But I think these are really interesting levers that we pulled for this artist and with this artist. There was a lot of input from the artist in what they were hoping to get done and what they were hoping to offer to their fans. And it's really cool how we've kind of developed our playbook around that and some of the things that we do with a lot of our clients now based on some of the wins here.
Yeah, and if you're out there and you don't have 300,000 fans across socials, just like hopefully this lends credence to the idea that like once you do that hard work of building up a fan base that is accessible online, you can go from low 5 figures or even 4 figures to, you know, mid 6 figures in a very short, span of time.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. One thing that I thought was really interesting about, or has been really interesting about the process of working with this artist, helping them scale revenue, really has been the taking advantage of the opportunity to make new offers around their existing records. So building out those additional vinyl variants. I think a lot of artists are hesitant to do short runs, but you shouldn't be. Let things sell out. Make offers to your fans and let them sell out.
And it's more bespoke. A lot of my favorite clothing brands, it's like that. It's like they're going to put out this thing and there will be a fair amount of this item, but like once it's gone, like it might not be reintroduced anytime soon.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the cool things here too, I can't confirm whether this was ever the case with this artist, but I'm putting it out there because I've made this recommendation to other artists on our client roster before. And that's if you do a limited run and you're selling it online, say in a sales promotion, say it's a vinyl variant or a new soft merch drop. Let's say you don't sell out of it, right? And you're like, okay, sweet, Jack, you're telling us like make something bespoke and we don't sell out of it. What do? Take it on the road with you and sell it there because you're probably going to sell it there, especially if there's only a few of them left.
That and like if you thought like a limited edition sales promo was potent, putting it back out there and like sometime later and saying there are only this many copies, or even changing the pricing and benefits like to make it a different offer. Like we told that story of someone who had 2 posters left and they sold them each for $100. That's also another opportunity.
For some of our clients, we've ran like trunk sales where it's like, hey, in the back of the van, we found 15 of these t-shirts that we thought were gone forever. Anybody want them? Here they are, either discounted or like you said, increased in price because they're so scarce. Like, that's a really good way of bringing back merch that didn't sell out, so you don't have to feel discouraged or, worried about the optics of not selling something out. But again, like, once you do one sales promotion, and this is something else that I'll mention about any of our clients that we work with when it comes to building promotional calendars for selling and profit maximization, once you have a few under your belt, you start to get a sense of what kind of inventory moves and at what volume. And once you do that, then you can predict what your purchasing your inventory purchasing should look like. Once you've got that on lock, then you can sell out kind of on demand as you want to.
Yeah, that rocks. Well, great story, super inspiring, and I hope that it shows a lot of you out there, like, it is very difficult to build a music career, but as a completely indie, so mostly solo, not the hippest genre, not all the monthly listeners on Spotify, like, you can still financially outperform a lot of the people who are that. So
Yeah, 100%. This is a cool story. Hopefully we'll have more updates, maybe another story about this same client in the future. But I hope you guys dug this. I hope you can take some of the levers that we shared on this episode and maybe pull them in your business. It's not as hard as you would think. And it's a lot of fun to see the wins from it. And like Cirque said, if you're in a position similar to this artist and you want to work with a team to pull off these levers, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to hit us up and chat with me about IndieX.
oh yeah.
Until next time, we'll catch you guys later on Creative Juice. Peace out, Indies.
Can y'all really feel me? Feel us East Coast, feel us West Coast, feel me. Say what?